Hello, everyone, and welcome to the third session of Berytech Online Meetups. Berytech Online Meetups are powered by GIST, the initiative by the US State of Department to empower innovation and science advancements by creating networks and collaborations between innovators, entrepreneurs, academia, and scientists. Today we have the third meetup, the third session in our first series, Tackling Food Security. This series is composed of 4 sessions. Each session addresses one key pillar of food security. In the past 2 sessions, we had tackled the stability pillar and the utilization pillar. And today's session is about the access pillar of food security. We have with us today our agri-tech in-house expert, Soha Nasser. We have an entrepreneur who made a tremendous journey in the past 2 years, and he will tell you more about his journey, Ricardo Slibus. We have from World Food Program, Maya Haig. I hope I pronounced your name correctly. Maya is a program officer responsible of the livelihood and innovation program of World Food Program Lebanon. And we have Elias Ghadban. Elias Ghadban is the regional advisor for ESQA when it comes to food security issues in MENA. Without further ado, we will kick off with a brief presentation about food security and what is the access pillar of food security with our in-house expert, Soha Nasser. Soha, the floor is yours.
Was unmuting. Good evening, everyone. I hope you can see my screen and my presentation.
Yes.
Great. So, food desert. What is food desert? I think maybe it doesn't seem any similar for or familiar to any country like Lebanon. I think it's a new word, but it is a label given to some areas around the world. So what is food desert? Food deserts are areas that have limited access to not only nutritious but affordable foods, which corresponds to a higher incidence in food insecurity. And these areas are exactly where the access pillar of food security is not present. So going back to the big title of food security as defined by the World Food Summit exists when people at all times have physical and economic access to sufficient, safe and nutritious food that meets their dietary needs and food preference for an active and healthy life. In other words, to simplify things, we are food secure when every one of us have access to available, nutritious and safe food in a stable way. So availability, access, utilization and stability are the 4 main pillars of food security. And as Zahi already stated, in our first session, we talked about the stability in the MENA of the food security, and that the MENA is the only region where the overall hunger situation has deteriorated and where food insecurity has increased lately, and how vertical farming innovation done by ground can help in a better usage of our limited arable and urban lands. And then we explained the food utilization in our second session and why food utilization is not only about nutritious side of the food security, but also it covers the processing, storage and safety part. And we shared with you how an innovative platform like FoodSite can help in improving the processing and safety part by linking producers to experts. And today we will focus on more on the access pillar to close our next week, our series on the food security with the availability as Zahi introduced. Food access is defined by the USAID as when individuals have adequate incomes or other resources to produce or barter to obtain levels of appropriate food needs to maintain consumption of an adequate diet nutrition level. So access requires that individuals have enough resources to obtain or produce their own food. To start with some facts, the World Bank observes that it is common to have 20 to 30% of the country's population consuming less than 80% of caloric requirements, even though national level of food availability is at or even greater than 100%. So a country can have all needed food available in the market, but still 20 to 30% of its population is not getting more than 80% of the nutritious requirements because they don't have this access to food. And this is where the food waste appears. In Lebanon, we waste 30% of our food that we produce or import. And perishable foods like fresh fruits or vegetables, fresh meat, and even fresh chicken, etc., are what goes to waste when not sold or stored well. And lately, the situation is getting even worse with the economic crisis because the economic access to food is becoming lower. According to an ESCWA report, and maybe Elias can give us more details in the panel, according to one report back in July, 48% of Lebanese are reportedly worried about their ability to access enough food. And 31% of them stated that they were not able to eat healthy and nutritious food over the course of 1 year. Lebanese food prices inflated by 367% the passing year. It picked up from 14% at the beginning of the year, so an inflation of 350% in 8 months. While if we look at the household income, it did not increase more than a maximum 30 to 40% in the most generous cases when any adjustment was done on the salary level. In contrary, some companies are giving half salaries because of the economic crisis. So if we want to shift the way we look at this pillar, we have to create more affordable food sources and extend the shelf life of our perishable food to minimize waste. And for that to become a reality, we cannot rely on the agricultural and food sectors alone. We need to make these sectors smarter by involving technology. Today, innovation and technology are not only needed in the medical or transportation or energy sectors. They are more than needed in the agri-food sector because we cannot sustain a living without being food secure. We need to produce our food smartly to be affordable for economically unstable households. We need to optimize food transportation to reach maybe food deserts that I think we will have some in Lebanon soon. Unfortunately, we highly need to reduce our food waste. So we need you, tech people, to take our knowledge in the agri-food sector and translate it into the most disruptive innovations. We need to imagine together how we can mix the artificial intelligence with maybe collecting and tracking data to know where the food deserts are, or to optimize maybe the food distribution routes to reach the maximum areas possible. How about mixing robotics with the supply chain work and the transportation optimization to make it as easy and smooth as possible and to maintain the quality of our product? or maybe how to profit from drones in reaching people in remote areas, or how we can use, let's say, manufacturing technologies, which is very interesting now, to extend our food shelf life without losing its nutritious content, for example, or even to use platforms and smart apps to help people who are not able to economically access food in getting meals, let's say, through different programs. I'm talking about all these challenges to highlight the change innovation and creativity can make. And that we need you to light up your creativity and come up with great ideas that not only procure the food security we are aiming, but also create business models that open a new space for job opportunities. With this, we will help in preventing insecurity and ensuring the better access to food in our country, in our region, and we will be eventually collaborating to the global effort of food security on the long run, helping maybe the world in its ultimate mission to feed 9 billion people by 2050. Now, please join me and Berytech in the unstoppable work of creating the change we would like really to see in the agri-food sector for a better food secure future. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Suha, for the very informative session. Now we have an entrepreneur who is a living testimonial that despite all odds, despite the major difficulties that we face in Lebanon, despite all the negative news that we hear every day and the worsening condition, if there's a will, there's a way. And fortune favors the bold, as they say. From the labs of USAC and from the first batch of agri-tech, we will hear the story of an amazing startup that went global and established a base in the United States and is reaching new markets every day. I'll leave the floor to Ricardo Slibus to tell us more about Starchy and about their journey and where they are going in tackling food waste and securing access of food to all populations, the marginalized and the economically capable population. Ricardo, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Zahi, for this beautiful introduction. So if I have to talk clearly about my journey, I have to begin with the very nice slides that Suha has talked right now about, and the really big problem that encouraged me to begin my startup. And I wasn't that much knowledgeable about the problem when I began. So it was like one scene that took me to another land and to another world. It's the scene of farmers who was in 2017 throwing their apples on the ground. And the problem was because they couldn't afford the cold storage. They doesn't have the way to take their produce and export, or to be able to compete even with the imported apples from Poland, for example. So here was the need for something to help them keep those produce for a much longer time, because for sure there is no quick solution to help them export or to change the whole economical chain in Lebanon. So there's something maybe to help them extend the shelf life of their produce, and at the same time keep the quality of those produce. And keeping the quality consistent is something very important in food security, as Suha also mentioned right now. So here where I began in the lab of Isaac, trying to create a barrier that is edible, and this barrier will act as a blocker to O2, CO2, and all the gases, and H2O as well for the fruit. So I was creating a controlled atmosphere for the fruit, so I can decrease the oxidation, decrease the respiration. So by that, I have to extend the shelf life. And it happened that when I began to work on this with a 100% natural solution, it's a liquid that once you spray it on the fruit, it will create a transparent layer. And this layer will give a beautiful shine to the fruit as well. And I will talk about this later because this is something very important as well. So this layer will do what I talked about, which is extending the shelf life of fruit. And it happened for apples that we extended it twice outside of the cold storage, twice its shelf life. So we're talking about 50 days outside of the cold storage in an ambient temperature. So the journey wasn't that much easy. As I'm talking right now, I feel like very comfortable talking, but it wasn't that much easy. I think if some of the attendees were some people that joined us or that knew about Starchy since 2017, 2018, they would see that yeah, those guys had a tough route to get to this point, because it's not easy to make what you're talking about, especially that it's something from science, it's something that needs time, it's something that needs thousands of trials, and the market needs you and is pushing you to make something, and especially in a country that is not that helpful. Even the mindset of the people is not that helpful. The first thing they will say, شو عم تحلم؟ No, this is it. Like they don't let you to dream. But to be honest, I only heard the positive voices around me. The negative voices were just like stickers on the floor, and I was just jumping over them. In details, the journey. When we made the minimum viable product, the first thing was to identify how to tackle the market and what's the real need. Because, okay, you have something that extends the shelf life of a fruit, but where is the implementation and how you can implement? Is it affordable? Is it something that you have to teach people how to use? You will have to drop in, replace something that was used before and let the product do what it does. And this is what happened, not by chance, but this is something called wax. You might have seen shiny fruits in the market. They sprayed it with some of the wax natural, some of them are made of a sort of petrochemicals. It depends on the sort, on the type of produce. So we targeted that we need to replace this wax by starchy. So the solution should be a drop-in replacement to the wax used. I mean, the grower or the packer shipper house, and this is identified after we made a lot of research and a lot of contact. What we identified who's our customer. We definitely landed on growers and packer shippers. So those people has a line called waxing line, sorting line, where they wash, spray their apples or other produce, and then they grade it to export or to get it to the local markets. And it's only right now a shift in the tank where we fill it with starchy, and that's it. So this was the big jump for us to the market, and that was the booster for starchy to get the first seed fund. It was because we were targeting a drop-in replacement, not something that will take decade to introduce to the market. So there's something very important here is how fast you are and how focused you are to get your product to the market and not going into the hype of startups and competition, which is a big problem right now all over the world, not only in Lebanon. So all the startups that I've been mentoring or I've been helping validating markets or something in the science field, the first thing they think about is, are we winning this competition and take those free money or not? And this is the worst thing that could happen to any idea. Defocusing the team, defocusing the people who are working on the minimum viable product and identifying the market. And at the same time, I was going to fundraise the first time for Starchy, a seed fund. A lot of investors came in from not from Lebanon only, mostly from US or Europe, coming in as a financial investors. And that's why I took time to get to the first seed investment, because we were targeting strategic ones. When we talk about strategic investment, we talk about people that can help you industrially, they can help you with their networks, they can help you to scale up and to reach your validation point at this stage. And this is what happened, where we got our first seed investment from Döhler Group, one of the top industrial people in Germany, and Maersk for shipping in Denmark, who joined Döhler in the first seed investment. And you might ask, why Maersk? This is a shipping company. What does it mean to finance a startup that extend the shelf life of produce? I have to get back to what Suha said about extending the routes or changing the routes of the shipping to get to better distances or other places. And that's what Maersk says. If Starchy can extend the shelf life of this container of apple 100 miles more or 1,000 miles, that's extra distressful for Maersk. I mean, they don't have to stress about when they open the container, they will have a lot of perishables to be abolished somehow. So we took it seriously after this point, and we scaled it up with the German partners to an industrial liquid with all the certifications and all the trials required. And something that I'm proud to say, we kept the research house and the research team in Lebanon. And I'm saying this, guys, right now because, yes, we are Lebanese. We have the capacity to think and search. We have the capacity to bring technology and IPs to the world. The only thing that is free is thinking. So you don't have to pay for this. Use your brain motor, you won't have to pay. So this is what we're doing right now in Lebanon. We have our and offices in Jbel, working all day long. We extended the team. We right now, between scientists and engineers, about 8 people in Jbel working. And this is the core of the company at the end, the research. And we managed to fully industrialize the liquid. And right now, this season, we are introducing our technology to Lebanon with the first customer to us. He's Haï Frère. maybe some of you knows him. He's like, people says about him like he's iced tea of fruits, premium fruits in Lebanon. Yeah, he was the first interested person because he can see the vision of extending the shelf life of fruits outside and inside the cold storage, especially because he is targeting to export as well. And this is very important for all the coming technologies. Help Lebanon export to outside, and how starchy can help export fruits, not only by extending the shelf life. I've mentioned before that it gives the fruit a glossiness, and this will attract the customers more and more, especially the GCC countries, and where customers are oriented with the visionary oriented more than they care about the taste. So this is the story. I need to thank Berytech because Berytech team, Agritech, were the beginner to see the vision we had. They saw the biggest picture before even I saw it. And this is the good thing about my journey, and I'm proud to tell that I graduated from Agritech Batch 1. So keep it up, guys, and keep the good work. And thank you so much for giving to the community more than it's giving back to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Ricardos. And who knows, maybe you can be in the shoes of Ricardos next year or the year afterwards if you pass through our 11-month acceleration program. The applications for Agritech Batch 4 are open now, and you can access them through the website and the chat. Also, we have in the chat the Slido link for all the people who have already posed their questions. And you can add more questions either to Soha or to Ricardo's and to our panelists once we kick off the panel. Now, I will quickly go through some of the questions that we have received so far. So is there a way to watch the previous meetups? Yes, of course. You can access them on Berytech YouTube link or website. What are the main reasons for food waste in Lebanon? Any data or reports? I think this is for you, Soha. If you can unmute.
Yeah. Yes. Actually, I don't have a report in hand, but we all know that we rely too much on our food service and catering in Lebanon, and this is where the biggest amount of food waste comes from. It's mainly what we leave at the restaurants, at our big events, this kind of things, where the meza is our king of the dinner. So I think this is one big part, but for sure, food safety issues, the product that is not really up to the standards is also thrown away at the end of the shelf life. So it is another reason for food waste also.
Okay, I think we have several questions also for Ricardos. So Ricardos, can you briefly explain how does the barrier or the material that you have invented, how does it actually work?
Yeah, so the liquid contains a natural polymer, and when we say polymer, it's like a net, shabak, and when you spray it on a fruit, it will dry, and only the solid content will remain on the surface of the fruit. So this solid content will inhibit oxygen and CO2 to get out or get in to the fruit in a percentage, in an acceptable percentage that reduces the respiration of the fruit without harming it and causing fermentation inside. So it's easy right now to explain, but it's not easy to tell you more and more, because it's like 1,000 trials to get to this point. But this is mainly how it works. And are they really available? Yeah.
So yes, this is another question about if the materials could be locally manufactured in Lebanon.
It's not locally made and sourced. No, it's made in Germany and sourced from different sources. The ingredients, I mean.
And is there a possibility to renew the coating to further extend the shelf life?
What?
We have a question about if you already sprayed the fruit and you want to further extend the shelf life, maybe to some supply chain reasons. Is there a way to respray it again?
The coating is washable with water. So you can remove the older coating and add the new coating. But the thing is that you're extending it naturally. And if you want to extend it extra time, that means that you will kill the fruit with extending it more and more. So there is a natural gap that we could work in it, and no one will be able to extend the shelf life more of a fruit just by limiting the respiration outside of cold storage. If it's inside of cold storage, then you don't need even to renew the coating. Coating inside, and it will keep the same quality and extend it for more than 6 to 7 months more, like up to 8 or 9 months inside of cold storage.
Okay, so we'll have one final question before moving to the panels, and we can address the rest of your questions in the panel. So is it actually applicable to all type of produce, to all fruits?
Right now we have tried on apples, pears, avocados, mangoes, papayas. So those are climatic fruits. We are trying on other things as well, like vegetables, like tomatoes and other things. But when I say that it's applicable, I should be able to say, yes, it's ready in the market and you can try it. I can't say right now it's applicable before finalizing the industrial application of it.
Okay, thank you for the great insights about your product, and I hope many more SMEs and local businesses in the MENA region will benefit from the capabilities and the use of starch.
Thank you so much.
So now we will kick off our panel. I will ask Elias and Maya to join us. If you can open your microphones and your screens. Yes, so my first question is to Maya. Maya, you are actually the program officer of Lebanon Innovation and Livelihood Initiative.
Yes.
Can you please tell us briefly about this program or initiative?
Of course. So I will just start by giving a quick overview of the livelihoods activities in WFP Lebanon's country office, and then I will start telling you about my role specifically. So I don't know if you're aware, but WFP has actually quite an extensive livelihood program. And our primary focus is resilience building. So what that means is we support vulnerable women and men in targeted refugee and Lebanese communities, sustainably improve their skills and capacities and livelihoods opportunities. Usually, this support is delivered through two main modalities, which we call food assistance for assets and food assistance for trainings. So what these two modalities are, basically, they are conditional cash assistance programs whereby participants receive a certain amount of cash assistance loaded on their on a common card or the normal, basically, debit card. And that usually is in exchange for their participation in the activities, which could be construed as a temporary income generating opportunity, but it's also cash assistance supposed to support their food security or the food security of the household. So under food assistance for assets, what we mean by it is basically unskilled participants who are the vulnerable Lebanese and Syrians. They actually work on reconstructing or rehabilitating a community asset. It's mostly agricultural in nature for the benefit of the local agricultural production of that community. And under food assistance for training, which actually I'm the lead on, we provide individual capacity strengthening activities to these individuals who are mostly youth, farmers, even cooperatives or agricultural associations. We provide them with, as I mentioned, individual capacity strengthening activities in order to support their income generation and enhance their livelihoods and basic life skills. So my role is with WFP, as I mentioned, I'm the FFT lead. So I work with our cooperating partners who are usually local and international organizations. We also work with academia and a chamber of commerce. We support smallholder farmers, agricultural cooperatives, and local producers. So what this support really is providing these participants capacity building trainings aimed at enhancing their soft skills, their technical skills, their business development skills. And another form of support usually is in-kind support. We do provide that, such as equipment and material. It is usually provided against a comprehensive set of business plan that is provided by these individuals. And the purpose of this business plan is to clearly show how this in-kind support would further enhance their profitability and their operations. And the third layer of support, and I wouldn't say this is the least important, of course, is in the form of providing market linkages and market accessibility support. So through such events as exhibitions, exposure visits, a mentorship, establishing farmers markets, what have you. So that's in short.
Thank you, Maya, for the very holistic hello, Elias.
Hi.
Can you please tell us a bit about your role as a regional advisor for ESCWA on food security and the latest works and development that ESCWA is leading in terms of food security throughout the MENA nations?
Yeah. Thank you, Zahi, and hello for all the participants, and thank you for the speakers before me. Do you hear me well first? Yeah, very good. So my role in ESCWA is to support member states, primarily ministries of agriculture, ministries of social affairs, to develop mainly agricultural strategies and food security strategies that influence the four pillars of food security. So, for instance, we work with the Ministry of Agriculture in Lebanon, in Jordan, in Sudan, in Iraq, etc., to improve the resilience of agriculture system. If we want to highlight at the MENA region, because the colleagues Ricardo, Maya, and Suha, they talk mainly about Lebanon, but ESCWA is a regional organization, and we try to understand the context at a regional level, because what Maya has stated, it's a crisis that is beyond the border. So if we are talking about refugees and host communities, this is a regional crisis that is affecting food security. So it's important, first of all, to understand what does it mean in terms of access to food. Because what Ricardo mentioned, it's not directly access to food. This is food availability in general, because it influences food losses, etc. Although logistics is very important, but there are several parameters in logistics, and the least of them is the conservation of the product. Because if you don't have road, if you don't have a good port, if you don't have a good system, etc., all of this will affect the logistics of bringing food or exporting food from the country. So we need to move from a baseline that the Arab region has around 18% of refugees or persons of concern for or UNHCR, which are the most vulnerable population in terms of food access. So we already have a weakness by the regional migration crisis that we have. In addition to that, in the region, we have 7 states which are classified under fragile and conflict-affected states. We have Syria, Libya, Somalia, Iraq, Yemen, and we have Lebanon and Sudan. When we talk about a fragile state, it means that you have social or institutional stability, or you have conflict that affect the livelihood and affect the access of the people to food in general. So in addition to that, we need to differentiate between household and national level food security. In the national level food security, we need to take into consideration the poverty level, which is in the Arab region, it is 16.6%, which is higher than the average world. And we need as well to take into consideration the food consumption in terms of total expenditure, total household expenditure, unemployment rate, the inflation, and the logistical issues. In addition to other sub-parameters which are related to social safety nets, related to access to finance, and related to agriculture import tariff in general. So these parameters define the accessibility of people to food. So even if the food is available, who is able to access it? And the parameter of the pillar of stability of food security, which affect the other 3 pillars, affect more the accessibility than the utilization and the availability, because it stops the livelihoods directly of people. If we want to see where technologies can help in food accessibility, it's mainly in the logistic issue, and in improving in general the employment and reducing inflation, etc., through better systematic and better informed decision making. What I want also to benefit from the presence of Maya, which in my opinion, WFP programs are highly relevant in terms of accessibility, because when you put cash in the hand of the most vulnerable, whether through food for asset or food for training, it means that you are influencing directly the poverty level, the food consumption rate, the employment, and as well if you have high inflation, like what's happening now. I mean, you have high inflation in the Arab region in general, which is around 13%. The world average is 2.5. So these cash that they are temporary support and build the skills, etc., they are very relevant to accessibility. However, the question mark that should be considered in such initiative of accessibility is the sustainability of these items, and how in a protracted situation, in particular the regional migration that's happening, or conflict which are protracted in our region more than 10 years, how such a program have a kind of linkages between the humanitarian side and the development side that would influence food accessibility in general. So this is in short. If we want to see how technology can influence food accessibility, definitely if we use technology to improve productivity, it means that you have more jobs in some specific sector, in particular agriculture. You have more production. It means that when you have more product in the market, the price is directly influenced, and you have more income when you improve the efficiency of the system. So you utilize less resources to produce more. These issues, if we improve the presence of, or we increase the presence of food in the market, it will improve its accessibility, because the price, it will be affected directly. So at ESCWA, we provide this knowledge. We have this country level assessment of food security, and we try to see how development programs targeting whether the nationals or refugees are assisting in the three pillars of sustainability, and the shortest one is the accessibility, which is directly influenced by cash. Thank you.
Thank you for the very elaborate intro. So I'll kick off with a question that leverages the presence of you three speakers. We have the entrepreneur, we have the international NGO that is very active on the ground, on the last mile interaction with the vulnerable parts of the population, and we have the advisor for governments and policymakers. So the key question that poses itself is how can new technology-based businesses that doesn't have 50 years of track record interact with on-ground social workers and NGOs and with government officials in a way that collaboratively relieve the burden of food inaccessibility for the marginalized segments of the population or the most impacted segments of the population. So I will start with Ricardos, the entrepreneur, to see your perspective on this sort of collaboration, and then we'll go to the NGO and then to the policymakers with Elias.
Yeah, this is a very good question. And very helpful for startups to cooperate with NGOs. And I've experienced this last year with USAID. And since my startup is giving a solution for growers and for packing shippers, and if you want to get the solution to those guys, you need huge marketing, or you need a huge network. So there was a program called IVLP through the USAID, and I've been with them, and I went with this group with this program to the US, and I did leadership in agriculture and economy through them. And when I got back to Lebanon, there was a program just for the sector of apples, also made by USAID, and they grouped all the people in this sector between growers, even industries that, for example, does the juice for apples, all the people that are in the sector and that are really helpful, and became a cluster. So those people are really connected, and when I introduced the technology, it became like pop-ups on my network screen somehow, where everyone wants to help and everyone wants to know more. And right now, what I'm doing with IEA, a lot of people are interventing in this introduction of technology, from a grower perspective to marketeers to chain holders. So this is very important for many NGO to be doing with a startup, especially if this startup knows how to get the most from an NGO. It's not only marketing and get the most from the network and from the people that can help.
So to sum it up, by your perspective, it's more about the network that the NGO opens up for the entrepreneur, and how the NGO can foster business ties and some synergies between several players in a given vertical.
Yeah, and expertise as well, especially expertise.
Okay. So for Maya, can you tell us more about any previous incidents or initiatives where you actually collaborate with SMEs or technology-based companies or startups? And what are the key concerns that you will have while dealing with a nascent business or a highly technology-based business?
So far, we haven't yet had a solid program focusing primarily only on working with small businesses. We are actually currently developing and piloting a few initiatives. So I cannot cite previous experiences, but I would say from a practitioner's perspective, definitely introducing new technologies and new disruptive technologies to the agricultural sector is extremely crucial in Lebanon. I would say the bottleneck, honestly, would be in changing the business mindset of the smallholder farmers or those producers or processors that we're actually trying to support with these newest technologies. Through our work, actually, we've noticed that the biggest bottleneck to the development of one of the biggest bottlenecks to the development of the agricultural sector is in the antiquated methods of conducting the businesses. The agricultural sector is also largely predominantly lacking youth. So, and it's not really a very attractive sector for youth. So I would say the challenge exists in bringing that old mindset and introducing this new technology and trying to tackle these antiquated methods and bringing forth new technological trends, new communication strategies, and those would actually influence their business operations and therefore enhance their productivity.
Thank you, Maya. Elias, I think the key missing component in both the answers of Ricardo's and Maya is the presence of the government. So from your vast previous experience, what are the main hurdles or the main gaps that hinder the ability of private sector, nonprofits, and government to collaboratively tackle the challenges of food security?
Yep. First of all, we need to understand that investment of government in the agriculture sector in the Arab region is very minimal. And to introduce new technologies, to pilot, etc., definitely the private sector and the non-profit role is the most important. The government would facilitate this, but they don't have the whether the human capacity or the financial capacity to contribute to this. This is across the Arab region, not related to Lebanon. But in Lebanon, it is very applicable, especially if we know that the expenditure or the budget of the agriculture sector is in total less than 0.3% of the total government expenditure. So it really covers the salaries and the running cost, etc. To tell you the truth, this is not something easy. By theory, we can say that technologies they are important and they will help, etc. But when you assess what's happening on the ground, we are still very far, even if the private sector is available, because we didn't reach a level of scalability. So we're still on the piloting issue. We pilot here and there. Ricardo is piloting, is still studying after all of this support. The private sector did not take yet this because this is parallel to what is available in terms of agriculture finance, these small businesses and entrepreneurs. So even if you have the technology and you don't have a facility to have good agriculture finance, it will not work. And we need to understand that this intervention of where the technology can work between the three actors that you listed, the government, NGOs, and the private sector, it depends on the niche or the win-win situation at the value chain level. So if at a value chain we see at a national level some intervention using technology are improving the efficiency and the resilience, it will work. But so far, with the initiatives, they are still very shy. You have the private sector, which is Ricardo. He's trying. He's developing. That's very important. But he still doesn't have a product to be. He's still testing. He didn't scale up. But as well, you can see that the international organization, such as WFP, they are still as well testing, and that's very important because they such organizations that they are responsible largely for the access of the food for the most vulnerable. They started to see the long-term effect of such introduction, and that the solution of the crisis is not permanent. It's not temporary. However, some structural element in the system need to be fixed in order to end up with a midterm solution, if we can say. Thanks.
Thank you. We have a question from the audience. As the Arab states are conflict-ridden, what can we add to the global food security narrative that is currently missing?
Sorry, can you repeat the question?
Yes, I will also share my screen. As the Arab states are uniquely conflict-ridden, what can we add to the global food security narrative that is missing?
We need to add a conflict-sensitive programming issue. So even if we are under conflict, you have specific livelihood programming that try to preserve the assets, especially in the agriculture sector, whether for refugees, IDPs, or host communities. So you can see, for instance, I can give an example. In Syria, okay, a solar panel for water irrigation of agriculture system was introduced largely during the war. Before the war, they didn't have a significant size of solar alternative energy to provide a source of energy for irrigation. So, and this is the credit goes mainly to UN organization, to international organization who tries to work in under conflict and under where the situation are not convenient. But you can see that a lot of the initiatives, they work. For instance, now in Syria, the bulk of the tractors and the combine harvesters, they were introduced during the war. So it's we need to see the double face of the coin. There is a war, but there are people who are working. The most important is to understand and program tailored solution for the agri-food system in these countries, and present to the policymaker some pilots that can be scaled up in a recovery and post-conflict situation. Thank you.
Thank you. And I believe that accelerators such as AgriTech will have a major role in facilitating the introduction of locally invented and manufactured pilots and businesses that have a tech component that can help facilitate the efforts of humanitarian organizations, NGOs, and even local businesses to, let's say, shorten their supply chain or relieve their dependencies on some key inputs such as energy. For Maya, we have one question. How has WFP adapted its resilience building programs during the pandemic?
So, of course, we have adopted in all our programs all safety measures for COVID. So social distancing, reducing the number of participants on site, reducing the number of participants in classrooms. as much as possible, masks, sanitizing, all those safety measures. But we're also actually trying to introduce online training for a lot of our participants. Now, this has definitely proven challenging because a lot of our the people we serve are actually they either do not have access to internet, or they lack the soft skills to actually be able to navigate online training. For those where to the best extent possible, the trainers who are sitting with our partners are actually intensifying all they're conducting one-on-one sessions to provide them with more comprehensive overview of how to navigate online training. So they're trying to give them as much personal attention as possible. And interestingly, we're also trying to pilot some new methods of online training with farmers, with individual farmers in the Bekaa region specifically, through local hubs or through demonstration plots that are actually trying to serve as innovation hubs inside within the agricultural sector up there. So yeah. Over.
Thank you, Maya. Now I have a question about one of the issues that Suha tackled early on in our meetup. It's about the supply chain. The supply chains got disrupted by COVID, disrupted by issues in several currency devaluations, be it Egypt, Turkey, and recently Lebanon, and of course Syria with all the war going on there. So what are the key opportunities in terms of either making the global supply chains more resilient, or reshaping the supply chains to be more local supply chains? I will start in a reverse order. We'll start with Mr. Elias on the policy and government level, and then we'll go with the NGOs, and then entrepreneur with Ricardo. So Elias, what are the opportunities for technology-based startups to help redesign the supply chains post-COVID and post all the currency devaluations and the issues that are present in MENA nations?
Yeah, that is a point. It's not pre-COVID and post-COVID. Technology in the MENA region is largely needed in order to improve the efficiency and resilience of agriculture systems, value chain stability, access to market, access to information, processing technology, etc. So I think in post-COVID, the only additional segment is that national policies started to rethink about their agriculture trade and about their local food systems, okay? And the need for local food system or agriculture trade in terms of technology, it didn't change, because we are still at a nascent stage in the Arab region in terms of adopting technologies, scaling it up by the private sector, by the accelerator and the facilitation of the government. So I would frame it this way. I think that the more we look at national food system, the more we need to accelerate tailor-based solution for agriculture technologies that might work in one country but does not work in other countries. And this is related to the enabling context of research, access to finance, and the role of the private sector. We need to understand that the main role of the agriculture sector in terms of economic contribution is mainly in conflict-affected countries. So it's not easy to say now and put on the table an angle of technology. It needs time. It needs to be more mature. It needs to be more structured, and all the actors, in particular donor, UN organization, INGOs, should benefit from this time to pilot. The piloting will lead in a short time of period, scaling it up. I do remember something, it's an experience that I want to share with the participant. In 2010, when the Syrian crisis started, I was working somewhere in the Bekaa region, and I went to one of the water establishments, and I told them you can do water pumping from a deep well pump by equipping it with solar panels without doing the batteries, etc. By that time, the manager of the water establishment told me, "Yes, are you making fun of us?" And I told them you can check it online, the productivity, etc. This in 2010. Now in 2020, from a pilot that started in 2010, in 2020 we have the strategy of the water establishment that's changed. This is one. We have all, intervention focusing on this. So you just need to present a successful pilot and model for the local authorities, for the local structure, for the government, and it will be scaled up. So we just need more successful ideas by innovative people and to apply innovative solutions. Thanks.
Thank you, Elias. So building on that, Maya, can we tell the audience a bit about the World Food Program Accelerator in Munich and how this accelerator on a global level is helping deliver such successful pilots that Elias already mentioned, and what could be done in Lebanon to help entrepreneurs pilot and deliver successful pilots that will convince the policymakers that the NGOs and the private sector, be it the SMEs or the entrepreneurs, can actually deliver on the promises and execute the strategies and the policies that international NGOs and policymakers draft.
So I'll start with the latter bit of your question. So as you previously mentioned, you mentioned focusing on local production. And I think this is something very obvious for all of us, but not just focusing on any local production. We need to actually focus on what products or food items we could produce, capitalizing on available resources instead of trying to import different raw materials to recreate something that we're already used to. I think we really need to relook at our relationship and our appetite for food. So we could focus on local procurement for new material by investing in upscaling in local production. As I mentioned, diversifying products where need be and creating new products where possible. And I think key here as well is the pricing of these materials. I think all of us, when we go to the supermarkets, we note even that some of the local Lebanese products are even more expensive than products that are exported from abroad. So we really need to also focus on how we could support the pricing of these products, whether it's through reducing cost where possible. We could look at creating strategic relationships with key actors, with and between key actors in the value chain, which could also support price reduction where possible. And most importantly, look at a bit, have a forward-looking attitude towards our food consumption. And now, on that note, I would just like to highlight how interesting it is now, the new products that we're seeing on the Lebanese markets. Just today, I've actually noticed two new different like taqa bars or protein bars that depend on local Lebanese production. I saw a hummus bar with that's sweetened with grape molasses, which was actually really delicious. So this is what I mean about redefining and our relationship with regards to food. And on your first question on the Innovation Accelerator, yes, that definitely sits under WFP in Munich. And the purpose of this accelerator is actually utilizing technology to enhance the delivery of humanitarian assistance. So I don't know if you guys have seen the blockchain technology in Jordan that would also support the refugee communities and their cash assistance or whatever purpose of the program. We are also looking at different hydroponics processes around the enhancing different hydroponics processes around the world. We're looking at different food computer technologies. So so yes, this is the accelerator. You can, for whoever's interested in the work of the accelerator, you can just go online and look at the different initiatives that that the accelerator has. They also have a very interesting boot camp which anyone can really apply to, which is very similar to the Agritech Accelerator. So I encourage everyone to go online and look at these initiatives.
Thank you, Maya. Ricardo's building on the initial question and the interventions of Elias and Maya. Can you tell us a bit how or what the entrepreneurs should focus on in delivering a business case or a value proposition that would make sense and would be attractive to international donors, international partners, and basically people that have a different business culture than the Arab culture? Let's put it this way.
Yeah, sure. So delivering the business case needs multiple things. First, it needs to validate that there is a problem here. Second, validate that there is a market for the solution to this problem. And third, validate your product. So if the entrepreneur focus on those three items, he will be able to let the world see his business case and will be able to negotiate on piloting and on people acceptance for the product or for the business case. So, for example, in the agriculture sector right now, in Lebanon, I don't see, based on the first part of your question, that the problem is pre or post COVID, and I'm seeing here the problem more into like dollar inflation, for example. So have to target more the how to export more and bring more dollars, how to build IPs that are centered in Lebanon, but they can target the whole world and is not based on, for example, on fruits or vegetables cultivated in Lebanon, because we won't be able to serve the whole world. We have small lands, but we have big brains that can serve a lot of IPs. So maybe in this situation where there is here a big problem, entrepreneurs should focus on the problem and try to mitigate between the solution and the market, so they can fit all together and deliver a business case at the end.
Thank you. And on that note, I would like to thank each and every one of you, our esteemed panelists. We will have final words starting with Maya.
Thank you so much for this opportunity and for hosting me and for listening to my suggestions. I would really like to emphasize what I mentioned previously on the grave importance of actually introducing technology in the agricultural sector. It's not going to be an easy process. It definitely will not be an easy process. It's exactly because the farmer community is a bit difficult to work with in Lebanon, but I think with more youth direction towards the sector, we will get there. And you all have really great ideas, and I trust that we will get there eventually. And good luck.
Thank you, Maya. Mr. Elias. Mr. Elias, if you want to have final words. You're on mute. You're on mute. We cannot really hear you.
Yeah, thank you for the important meeting and for the information that Ricardo, Soha, and Maya shared. I think the more we talk about this subject and exchange information, we learn more and we try to understand better the context in order to support more the most vulnerable, the farmers, and the youth who's investing time and energy in designing and thinking about new startup. And good luck, Ricardo, in your initiative. This is something very promising. And yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Elias. Ricardo's.
Thank you all for this amazing evening. Thank you, Zahi, for hosting us. And thank you all the panelists and the attendees. I think what I need to say here, and this is maybe the only windows I can reach people right now because we miss the social life, is try to take advantage of the time we have right now. We have more time than before to think and to do things more and more than our life before COVID. So for all the colleagues in the universities, all engineers or scientists or all people that has projects to do, please work on agriculture. Please think twice before you jump over a topic that concerns agriculture in Lebanon or outside. This is a very huge topic that needs a lot of work, and this is where the efforts should be like born, and you have to be really concerned. I'm a scientist. I'm not an agriculture engineer, and I've never heard about someone like working in agriculture and is not into agriculture. But I've done my research. I've been into this sector for up to 4 years, thinking all the day about this, all the problems and solutions that might fit. So it's worth, guys. It's worth it to work on this, and hope you can all reach your dreams and become successful. Wherever is the condition in our country, we can reach. We can do whatever we want if we have the passion and the will. Make sure that you need to be somehow like to imagine big things, and they will happen with time. Thank you all, guys, for hosting us one more time, and that's it.
Thank you, Ricardos. The final note is for Soha.
Thank you, Zahi. Thank you for the panelists. I just want to say to our participants, if you had any idea, any aha moment during this panel, please don't hesitate. I encourage you to apply to our next Agri-Tech batch so we can make it a reality, hopefully one day. Thank you.
Thank you, Soha. For all of you who are interested in applying to Agri-Tech Batch 4, we have sent again the link in the chat. So please make sure you click the link to open the web page before closing our event. Our next Berytech meetup, the fourth and final meetup about food security, will tackle the availability pillar and will be next Tuesday, same time. Next Thursday, same timing, from 6 till 7:30 p.m. Beirut time. Until then, I want to thank you for attending this meetup, and we will see you next week. Bye-bye.